All right, man. We are back with our third episode of the Armstrong Avenue podcast. I knew that was coming. 1, 2, 3, man.
That's as high as I can count.
Oh man, I've had so much fun doing the last two that I've been super excited to get back to it, man. I don't know about
Yes.
you, but
Oh yeah, definitely, and a lot of good feedback just from our little snippets that we've had online and on YouTube. So
yeah.
it's all positive.
Yeah, that's what I've gotten to. I've had a lot of people. I've had a lot of my friends from the fire department and the fire service, and just in general, my friends hit me up and go, "I didn't know you were doing this with Scott. This is incredible. How did you get this going?" I said, "You'll have to wait and find out, buddy."
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I appreciate it too.
Oh man. So, how was your Father's Day weekend, man? Did you have fun?
It was great. Oh yeah, really relaxed. My dad's been gone for a little bit now, so it was tough on the wake up. But just remembering him and what he's done for me and my brothers and the foundation that he laid for all of us, all the brothers to, go forward in the wrestling industry and forward as men and the character and the traits and the things that he taught us and that I'll take with me and pass down. Hopefully, I'm passing it down to my son and my grandson. So it's good. It was a good day and very relaxing and family. You
I
know what
seen
I
some
mean? So,
pictures on the beach. You look like you were lounging in a chair in the ocean, man. I was jealous.
dude, that's every day if I can do it. Every day is a beach day.
Oh man,
Uh,
living the dream, brother. You are absolutely living my dream. I know for sure.
yeah, I
I spent
love Pensacola Beach.
my wife surprised me at the fire station with my kids. I was a little upset. I was
Oh,
like, man, I was at work on Father's Day, sitting around all day. Had a pretty rough day, but she showed up that evening right after dinner, and I didn't know she was coming. The doorbell rang, and I was like, "Who's here?" I opened the door, and my son's there, and he just runs in.
oh,
He
that's
knows
all.
he knows where the fire trucks are. He was gone.
Yes, I remember those. Remember those days. Our dad was a fireman too, and I remember just getting to go to the station house and see hey, come on, as a 7, 6, 5, 4, whatever child,
Mhm.
fire truck's one of the coolest things ever.
Yeah, yeah.
So to be able to stand on it's awesome.
Yep. He just kept running around. I'm gonna be a fireman. I said, please don't, son. There's more to life than being a fireman. I love it, but there's so much more to life than doing this.
Well, I'm sure everybody in every job feels that way. That's the
Yes,
truth.
yes, there is. But speaking of your father and even your brother, we started this podcast, and we were me and you were trying to rack up names, and you threw a couple at me, and Armstrong Avenue was one of them, and you'd sent me the sign that your dad had, the street sign.
Yep. Yep.
And I think at first we were going to do like Armstrong Pro Wrestling stories, and then, but I had found a video, and I want you to watch it. And listeners at home, you can pull this up on YouTube, and I'm hoping this is going to work. This is the first time I've ever done this, so this is. Let me know
Oh
if you can
wow.
hear it.
Yes.
For the Road Warriors. Welcome to Armstrong Avenue, Armstrong's Electric Avenue.
Wow.
What you're looking at now is my son Brad pumping a little iron, and I'm sure the Road Warriors are familiar with pumping iron. My name is
Definitely in the 80s.
No what you've heard about the Armstrongs,
I love the hair, the glasses.
There'll be no more
Yeah.
nice guy.
Definitely the 80s.
Film clips of the Road Warriors and
40 plus years ago.
No doubt about it. And what Brad and I do is come out here and pump iron because we like to be powerful too. We got about 200
When wrestling was wrestling.
That's right and tight.
I love it.
We're going to hit out back. We're going to get in that mat, and we're going to do what we call agility drills. Up, down, in, out, back.
It's funny.
Around because that's the way to beat the road.
Our dad was he was always in shape, man. Even before wrestlers were in shape, he was in shape. A lot of people don't know. I think it was '64. He won the Southeastern Powerlift Championship, and he was big into powerlifting. And then he realized that sometimes powerlifters aren't as agile as smaller guys. So he started, training in the gym for the body and the look, and still power. He was always wanted to be strong.
Yeah, that's
Armstrong.
That's right, Armstrong. Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome, man. What do you know? What year that was?
I don't.
I mean, that's got to be early '80s because Brad Brad started wrestling in 1981, and that's got to be like 82 or something. They were, I mean, so that's how long that sign, I sent you the picture of that street sign. That's how long somebody had given that to him, and he always had it in his gym. And then when he and my mom ended up selling their place, I inherited it. I think what I did was just didn't tell my brothers and stole it. That's what I did.
You stole it?
Yes.
And
I got it out there in my garage right now, right near my weights.
Yeah, I had honestly I don't know how I come across that video. It was I think it was after I posted our first clip really, and I just typed it in YouTube to see what would happen if I typed in Armstrong Avenue. Like, would our clip be one of the first that popped up? And it was that video, and I was like, hold up, let me watch this. And I was like, I think I should show this to him. We should check this one out.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
I liked it.
It's really cool. You know, with our channel just getting started and the growing pains that we know we've inherited here in the first couple episodes, just the little things that we're learning from. One of the things, like and subscribe, because you never know what you're going to get on our channel. So please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. And, you know, hopefully we'll end up having more videos like that, and more. We'll have guests, because I want to look. I did my brother's podcast. I want him to do ours.
Okay, well, let's make that happen.
Yeah, definitely. And my daughter, she says all the time, "Oh, come on, Dad. I was raised by a wrestler." That's what she always says. I'm going to write a book and call it "Raised by a Wrestler." And she said, "I need to come on your podcast." And I said, "I don't want you ever coming on and telling anything the way I raised you."
I know that's right. Yeah, if it that would my parents get mad at me all the time because they listen to my other podcast and they were like, "Yeah, don't talk about that."
Right. Yes.
But I think in the last episode afterwards we had talked about let's go back in time on this one. Let's go to Southeastern Continental. Let's talk about that a little bit. Tell me. So I've done a little research. I was before my time, of course, but I've sat down and done a little bit of research on it. So Southeastern was started by Robert Fuller.
Ron Fuller.
Ron Fuller.
Well, the Fuller family.
The Fuller family.
It was, so the Southeastern was in the Pensacola, Northwest Florida area, and that was Southeastern Wrestling, and it was in the late 70s, 77, I think. Ron Fuller came down here and then ended up there ended up being 5 of them. Ron Fuller, Robert Fuller, their cousin Jimmy Golden, another one of their cousins, Roy Lee Welch, and then my father. And the 5 of them bought the territory and then opened up shop with Ron as the top heel and my dad as the top baby face. And man, it was just, they did business right off the bat. The Fuller Welch family is just steeped in wrestling tradition. I mean decades and decades of old school wrestling. And so the knowledge that the Fullers brought to the table, my dad learned a lot. And then we all had all the brothers, as we grew up, had the opportunity. We had known Ron, Robert, Jimmy. We had known those guys growing up. So honestly, it was like growing up and getting an opportunity to wrestle in the Pensacola Southeastern area was like wrestling against all your uncles that helped raise you. Hey, I remember being a teenager, boy, get out of there. What are you doing, man? You're going to get in trouble. That kind of always looking out for us. And so really, really cool relationship with all those guys. But that was Southeastern late 70s. And that was the 5 guys that came down here and started it all off. And Brad started in 81. I started in 83. Steve, I think, started in 84. And then Brian, everybody knows as Road Dogg, started as I want to say You know what? I don't want to lie. I'm not sure what year, because I know he went into the Marines after high school, and I'm 8 years older than him. So he went into the Marines for, I don't really remember. Lord have mercy. You got to listen to his podcast. After you like and subscribe to ours, you got to go listen to his.
Like and subscribe to the Armstrong Avenue podcast, and then head on over and listen to the Oh You Didn't Know.
Yes, there you that's it.
with Road Dog Jesse James.
Yeah, I guess I should write that down. He's going to get hot. That's funny.
Oh man. So so your dad came in. How long did it take for them to merge into the Continental Championship Wrestling brand?
So, if we're talking business, back in those days, the business kind of changed because it was the territory days. There weren't major networks. You know what I mean? There weren't major cable television. That wasn't around. So the wrestling business industry changed like every 5 years. You had to kind of do something different if you were in the same place over and over and over and over. And so after, I want to say 5 years, they came in, changed the name from Southeastern to Continental. They brought in a couple of big names and let them come in. And we had a big opening, like an opening week with all these big names, and all our production was geared towards letting the public know that Continental Championship Wrestling, these new people that took this over, when in reality, it was still, we were just renaming it. It was just being renamed and rebranded. But rebranded is today's term for it. And so, and also the territory that had always been TV done in Dothan, Alabama. Every Saturday morning we did the TV, and it aired in Dothan on Saturday night. And that TV show, when it got rebranded, kind of moved towards northern Alabama, and we would do the TV show in Birmingham. And Birmingham, Alabama, we were in Boutwell Auditorium, and I want to say, I'm not sure exactly what it seated. I want to say 8,000 or 9,000, and we would have unreal crowds every Monday night with the same people every Monday night, and so it took off, and we went from studio wrestling in front of 60 people to arena wrestling in a big, huge arena with thousands of people every week. And so the brand just literally exploded. And the thing is all the big wrestling that was on the other channels was in the north. Vince and Vern Gagne and that was all the big. So that got all the magazine coverage, and all the big media push was from that area. Every once in a while, Bill Apter, who was the wrestling magazine guy back in those days, he would come down for a few days or a week and go back. And so there was no real reporting of the Continental area at that time, or the Southeastern area either at that time. And so people now are seeing the videos and saying, "Oh wow, that's the storylines are so cool. Oh, y'all stayed with this for a long period of time," and we had to stay with the storylines for a long period of time, and you had to keep it fresh every TV, because it was the same crew in front of the same city. We were Birmingham, Alabama on Monday night, Mobile, Alabama on Tuesday nights. Usually Wednesday was off, and Thursday would be like Montgomery, Alabama. Saturday would be Dothan, and then Sunday night was Pensacola. Well, we lived right here at Pensacola Beach, so I mean it was an hour to Mobile. The longest trip was 4 hours to Birmingham. That was like you'd have to leave at like 1:30 or 2 o'clock on a Monday, but you literally could go to the gym and go to the beach every day and then take off. Dothan, 2.5 hours. I mean, just a It was the best.
Yeah.
And I was young living it. So it was, for me and my brothers, it was the time of our life. The high spot of the whole thing is like once I moved out of the house, I'd started wrestling for a while, and my dad bought a condo. I think it was literally just to get me out of the house, and so I'm living in a 2-bedroom condo by myself, paying the bills. And Arn Anderson, who had at the time, I mean, his real name's Marty Lundy, and so he was just getting his first real break. He had come to a TV one time, he just came to TV in Dothan just to get beaten in 5 minutes. And before the show started, he was doing push-ups and stretching and really showing that he wanted to be a wrestler. And so then he got in the ring, and his timing, he was good. And so my dad, I'll never forget, we were driving to Birmingham, and he said, "Hey, this guy, Marty Lundy," he said, I'm going to offer him a position. My dad was the booker at the time, and he said, "I'm going to offer him a position here with us down here." And he said, I said, "Oh, well, I'm going to ask him if he wants to be a roommate. He can rent that other bedroom." I said, "If he's going to be here a while." And he said, "Yeah, he'll be here a while." And so I went to Arn, who is now Arn. I went to Arn and said, "Hey, well, first I'll let my dad offer him the job." And he, of course, he said yes. And that literally was what got Arn started in the business. I mean, working days at a time. Arn will tell you, my dad gave him a start, and he ran with it. And man, we were roommates, oh gosh, for well over a year. And I think I lived 12 lifetimes in that 1 year with that dude. And the funny thing is we'd wrestle all week, and at the end of the week, if we had $5 left in our pocket, we thought we were rock stars. We had a good time though, and we got a lot of history together.
And then, as everybody knows, Arn Anderson went on to be in the Four Horsemen, Ric Flair,
Yep.
the Enforcer.
Yep.
One of the best of all time. And
That's true. Oh my gosh, without a doubt. It's because after once he came down, once Arn got started here, and then Flair would come down here. Well, Arn and him would go out all the time, and Arn was a young dude. I mean, 26 or 7 probably, and they would go out because Arn was a heel. We literally lived such a secret lifestyle because I was a babyface and Arn was a heel, and so we couldn't tell anybody, "Hey, come back to the apartment." And we just lived because back then, if anybody saw us together, we'd both get fired. It didn't matter that my dad was. It didn't matter. I mean, my dad was really hot at first when I told him, "Hey, I'm going to get Arn to move in," and he said, "Oh no, son, you can't do it." I said, "No, that's the best thing about where we live down here is it's a beach community. So nobody really cares if you are a pro baseball player, a pro wrestler, or the top lawyer in the country, or a big time doctor. Nobody cares. I mean, James Andrews, that does all the surgery on all the big names, has a condo down here too, and everybody just kind of does their thing because it's all about going to the beach."
Yeah, and then one day I'm going to move in, and they're going to go, "What do you do for a living?" I'm going to be like, "Man, I don't even know."
Well, I mean, that's just it. Everybody lives here. That's the thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a community that everybody. That was the best thing about, because at one time all the wrestlers lived here. I mean, all the territory wrestlers, they all lived here. I remember. So Mike, do you know the name Exotic Adrian Street?
Okay, so Adrian Street sounds really familiar, but I've heard it. Yes.
Okay, so Adrian was from England and came here to wrestle, and he was very flamboyant. And with Alabama being part of the continental area, Adrian was well, way too flamboyant for Alabama. and they hated his guts. And so he got over really strong. He came out, he had his wife with him, Miss Linda, who literally was one of the toughest women I've ever known in my life, and a true sweetheart to the core. I mean, great human being. And so she was like his valet, and go to the ring, and he had such heat. It was unbelievable. And he wasn't a big, huge, muscled up guy or anything like that. He just wore his hair in pigtails and painted his face, came out to a song called What I Could Do to You. And it was, I mean, it fits in with today's time, but back then it didn't. In Alabama, it definitely was something that they did not appreciate. And so, and he was a double tough dude. I'll tell you a quick story about Adrian. So he had been here 3 weeks. I didn't know him. I didn't know of his character. I didn't know anything about him personally or Linda. And so it was his 3rd week here. Well, we were wrestling in Pensacola. So the first week he was here, he had my brother Brad, and they wrestled and had a good match. But they did a spot where Adrian went in behind Brad and waist locked him, shook him around, and Brad reversed it. And when Brad reversed it, Brad had him, and Adrian just wiggled his butt in Brad's crotch. And Brad shoved him off. Like, oh, come on, man, this is wrestling. So the people all pop, laugh. And the very next week, Adrian has my brother Steve. And Steve and Adrian, they wrestle around, and Adrian does the same spot with Steve. The people laugh. And so the 3rd week, guess who Adrian has? Me.
I'll take a wild guess.
And so in my mind, now keep in mind I was probably 24. And so in my mind, I've seen this guy do this to both of my brothers. So in my mind, I'm not thinking about working with him and getting the gimmick over. I'm thinking about, well, this doesn't make sense for me to do the same thing. So when he wiggled his rear end in my crotch, I just schoolboyed him and took him down. And that dude stretched me 12 ways from Sunday. I had no idea. And I mean full shoot, taking me down. And I just remember my arm, I thought was going to snap, and going, okay. I got the message. And looking up and at Linda, who was on the apron, she's just grinning from ear to ear. And she went, oh, that looks like fun. I remember Adrian getting off of me and me looking back at her and going, well, it was not fun at all. And so we get back to the locker room, and Adrian goes, Scotty, I would love to do that again sometime. I said, no, Adrian, we will never do that again. You can do anything you need to do in the ring. And so then I explained to him the way my reasoning for doing that. And he went, yes, no, that's not what I do. And I said, well, yes, sir, I learned that the hard way tonight, and I will never forget it. After that, he had a long run here in the Continental area. I ended up one night in the locker room. He said, hey, do you know anybody that sells that does real estate? And I said, yeah, I do. He said, I'd like to buy some. And I ended up, the lady that had sold me my house and my dad his house, I ended up hooking him up with her, and he ends up buying an entire block down here in Florida of like condos. It ends up being 8 of them in one building, and he buys the whole block. And man, he made some money.
Oh, I can imagine.
He did really well. He was a really good dude. He's moved back now and back overseas, and he and Linda and I think he's about 76 or 7 now, and looks like $1 million. His body is in the best shape he's ever been. He looks phenomenal. And Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. Somebody else who's like that who looks surprised me. Chick Donovan is like that too. He's
I remember
amazing.
Chick Donovan. I wrestled him a number of times.
Chick Donovan. I actually spoke with him on the phone about probably 6 months ago. But I seen him at a small what I would call a shindy. A crappy indie show, and
I've been a couple of those.
And but he was there, and he got a huge pop, in Georgia. Chick Donovan, he lived right down the road, but he's in amazing shape for his age, and he works out like twice a day, just incredible.
He always looked good. He did. He always looked out, and he's been around, man, how many years? I mean, I remember him back in the Ole Anderson booking days for WCW or Georgia Championship Wrestling, I should say. And Chick would be on their TV show then. And he's always been in the gym. But that's cool to hear. Very cool to hear. I'm glad he's doing good.
Yep, he's he looks like $1 million, man. Right now, like he could probably still go and put on a quality show with some of these young guys that really probably wouldn't know what they're doing with him.
Yeah, that's probably the truth.
But he told me a story the first time I talked to him about he used to be a fireman in Bibb County, which me and him then that popped me because me and him got talking about firefighting and we went on for hours.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you've done it, my dad could have talked it with you too. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'd have loved that. I'm hoping one day to be out of it, but we'll see where life takes us.
Yeah, amen. Amen.
So hopefully things take me this way where I'm going. I'm seeing like we've said, man, God puts us in places and
yep. People in our paths, brother. People in our paths make things happen.
Yeah.
That's
So
the truth.
You put a question on Twitter recently. We're trying to start this. If people follow us on Twitter, we're trying to do the hashtag Ask Scott.
Yes, or leave it in the comments.
Leave it in the comments on YouTube or hit me up on Facebook, whatever. I'm on all of them. And ask Scott. Ask us anything you want to ask us. I don't know who this. Somebody asked, "Do we get our entrance, Scotty?" The Studs of Bollywood.
That's the Bollywood Boys. You remember the Bollywood Boys with WWE? Bollywood, and they would come down. They'd come down the ramp, and it's funny because once I became a producer with WWE, I had some of their matches, and look, those two brothers, they're brothers, and their hearts are big as life. And if we knew we had a 6-minute segment, they wanted to make sure that they got 6 minutes of wrestling. And so I literally would try to convince them every week, no, guys, get your entrance. Don't look, the wrestling is fine, but the TV show is on Raw 3 hours. And I said, make sure you get your entrance. I said, that way people will know who you are. Because otherwise, if without an entrance, we just come up with you in the ring. Oh, here's the Bollywood Boys. And then you start wrestling. And I said, get your entrance. Let people know who you are. And so it took a long time to convince them that the entrance was as important as the wrestling. And then I don't know, one day they just came and said, oh my gosh, we're in the airport, and people came up and said, oh, the Bollywood Boys. Oh my. I said, yes, that's been it was the goal the whole time. And they finally saw it. And then it became between me and those two dudes. Every time I'd see them, it wasn't, Scotty, what's up? It was, hey, Scotty, can we have our entrance? And I'd just start laughing every time. You can, boys. You can always have that entrance. They're
That's
good,
great.
dude. I think they live in Canada, and they're good, and still in the wrestling business, still going. Okay. I think they were released from WWE a little while back, but they're still kicking, still doing their thing.
Still kicking. WWE's had a lot of releases over the last couple of years. You, your brother, those fellas, a lot of people, but a lot of people have really hit the ground running with the independent scene.
Well, it's funny because the WWE spends years and a lot of dollars to make superstars, and when they release these guys, they're still superstars. I mean, they've had mega TV time, and now they're not on TV, but wrestling fans don't forget. Wrestling fans remember. And so, I mean, when you see, Braun Strowman, you see that guy coming to an indie show. I want to go see him. You know what I mean? He's the guy people will pay to see. And so, or Bray Wyatt, or Jonah, who was, at NXT. I mean, people will pay to see these guys. AOP. I mean, it's guys that got the chance, and then WWE had other plans, and that was that. And so, look, I get it. It's business. It's a lot of times it's not the way I would do business, or the way Twitter would do business, but it's the way they do business. And you can sit back and go, oh, well, WWE's this and there's that, and you can knock them and second guess them, but it's a multi-billion publicly traded company. So somebody's doing something right. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm not coming to their defense or anything like that, or singing their praises. I'm just saying, hey, somebody's making decisions that obviously work. And it's not just a decision in Pensacola, Florida. It's a decision that goes all over the planet. And I mean, I did it with them. I went all over the planet with them. And you go and you see what that machine makes happen, and you just go. I'll never forget the very first. I'd been in the business for a long time. Started when I was 22. Met my wife. We got married when I was 25, and then WWE hired me when I was 45. And so, I mean, it was a long time being in the wrestling business before I actually got to WWE, which was considered the biggest of the big time. And I'll never forget the first WrestleMania. And we, me and my wife and 2 kids, and we walk into Access. And, Access is like the week or 4 days or whatever prior to WrestleMania. And you walk into this huge place, and it's autographs and games. And I mean, and I'll never forget my wife, who is 35-year tag team partner, bless her heart. And we walk into this big, huge thing, and she just looks over at me and goes, "Can you believe you're a part of all this?" And we both just started laughing. And I said, "No, I can't." I mean, it was larger than life. Only a day or two later to walk into WrestleMania and go at Ford Field and go, "Oh my God, I really am a part of this. I'm going to be out there in the dead center of that." I mean, it was just so overwhelming. And then it's like, look, it's like everything. If you get a steak once every 6 months, it's the best steak you ever had. And 6 months later, it's still the best steak you ever had. With WWE, you do pay-per-views in sold out buildings, and WrestleManias and sold out 70,000 seat stadiums. And it's weird because the sold out arenas is one thing, and you might start getting used to that if you do it every month for, years on end. But those WrestleManias, nobody can say, "Oh yeah, it's just another Mania." It's not like that. It's super big, and you feel accomplishment, career accomplishment, I guess I should say, to be able to be a part of it, or whether you're in the ring or out. I mean, I was part of producing on, I don't know, 5 or 6 years of WrestleMania matches, and to sit with a headset on and watch the match that I was producing. It was, when that match, if it went like you had hoped it would, it's just the same feeling of accomplishment. You're just not out there in front of the people. But it's like the proud dad thing where you started with 2 dudes, and then you go over the match and give it life, and then you put it in front of 70,000 live in the stadium and millions watching at home, and you hope that child comes out good. and when it does, it's a great feeling. It is a great feeling.
I can only imagine that.
It's so funny, Mike, because we're talking about the territory days and how I started to end up like that. And the 20 years in between that it took to get there. You know what I mean? 20 plus years to actually get there. And you just go, man, I mean, I said it all the time to my wife. How did this happen?
Yeah.
How did we end up here? You know what I mean? It's crazy. And it's the people, like we said a minute ago, it's the people that are put in your path. It really is.
Yep. I completely, I feel that to my core, man, that the people who get put in your path are there for a reason. But
yeah. Amen.
It took you 20 years to get to that moment. And in that moment, it was like, I couldn't imagine walking out there in front of 70,000 people and going, dude, I used to wrestle in front of 20. Like
20 people. Well, hey, so I'll tell you this. I'll never forget this moment in time. I was literally about to walk out, and Shawn Michael said to me, is this your first Mania, Scott? And I said, I mean, he probably saw that I was such a nervous wreck. And I said, yes, it is. And he said, so do me one favor. And I'm thinking he's about to rid me, you know, and mess with me. And he goes, when you get out there, the camera won't be on you because they don't shoot the referee. He said, when you get in the ring, I want you to just take a minute, take a deep breath, and just turn in a circle and enjoy that moment. And I went, okay. And so, of course, my mind was going 100 directions. I'm trying to remember everything. And then it's just like you're saying, you walk down that ramp and 70, even though the spotlight's not on you because you're the referee, nobody's really, you know, people close up or, ref. I get in the ring and somehow I remembered what Shawn had just told me. And I just turned in a circle and took a deep breath. I couldn't help but just sit there and smile. If they had shot me on camera, you just see a donkey eating briars, grinning referee from ear to ear, man. It was just, oh, golly, man. I remember that moment too. I remember I reminded Shawn of that, years later. I was with him for about a year and a half at NXT until recently. And so I reminded him of that. I don't think he remembered, but I sure will never forget it.
Yeah. Yeah. Until recently. And then
Yes.
now you're doing something with us over here at the Armstrong Avenue podcast and the Main Event Wrestling.
Another avenue, baby. Another avenue.
Yes, sir.
Welcome
yes, sir.
change. You got to welcome change.
Hey, isn't it nice to be able to do a little bit of work from your house?
Well, it doesn't suck. Something besides car washing and mowing the yard and waxing the car. And my wife said, I don't think our cars have ever been waxed so much. And I just started laughing. I said, yeah, I'm really happy about being able to be the guy that actually does that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even my neighbors have said, so this is what you look like? Because I lived in airplanes and Marriotts and the whole 9 yards. And but it's look, a passion is the wrestling business. It's simple as that. It's what I grew up around. It's I've been going to the matches since a little boy, and you watch it all and see it all, and you love it or you don't. And I'm just I'm so happy in my life that in this one life that we are given to live on this earth, that I was able to do what I love. And it's been a blast. And this is the beginning of a next chapter, and I'm happy to be a part of writing it. So
I'm just blessed to be a part of doing it. Yeah, just being right here, as being the producer is fun.
Hey, it's a blast, right? It is.
Yep. And
what we do.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of fun. I get to sit here and listen to these stories, and I'm gonna tell you, people ask me what I do when I'm not doing this and at work, and even when I'm at the fire department. Here lately, I've literally spent so many hours watching Peacock and YouTube and watching the matches you refereed and the matches that you wrestled in, so that I could better understand the things that we're going to talk about and have guide points. And a lot of it has taken me back to my childhood of watching these matches. I don't want to say it like that, like being a child.
No, I get it. I do. I understand. Well, probably most of our listeners or viewers are close to your age. I mean, you're 28, right?
Yes, sir.
And my son's 28. And the funny thing is I wrestled for 22 years before I ever put on a referee shirt. Mm. And my kids don't know. I mean, my son, I can remember taking him to indie shows with me, and he was 5, and we would get there early so that I could get in the ring with him, and because he saw his dad wrestling and he wanted to do it too. And I can remember, I remember one time him climbing to the second rope and me going, "Hey, dude, don't go to that top rope." He just turned and jumped. I was laying on the mat, and he just turned and jumped double knees right into my chest. I remember all the boys that were there early too, all laughing so hard because I sold it, going, "Oh my God, dude." I said, "Hey, boy, come on." And one of the guys said, "That's as hard as you'll get hit all night." And it really was. But the funny thing is, at 4 years old, what do you remember? You don't. And so what my kids remember is, so when my brother was doing Road Dogg, they remember that, but they don't remember me wrestling even on WCW. They were young. My son's your age, my daughter's a couple of years older than you, and they remember my brother. And the funny thing is my daughter is the oldest, and so when Brian Road Dogg was getting his big push, they'd do "If you ain't down with that, we got 2 words for you." And then they would say those 2 words. Well, my daughter was like 7 and in 1st or 2nd grade and learning to read. And so, people would hold up signs that said, "Suck it." And so I couldn't let my little girl hear that and see that, but we would watch their uncle, my brother, we would watch their entrance until it started getting to that part. Mm-hmm. And I would always have the remote control hidden on the side. And so he'd say, "I got 2 words for it." And I would change the channel and go, "Oh, come on, what happened? What?" And then I would turn it right back. And my kids, they'd look around like, "What just happened? What just happened?" I'd say, "Oh, okay, it's fixed now." So I did that as long as I could. I just didn't want, it just didn't feel right for my 6 or 7-year-old daughter here, and especially her uncle. Say, Billy, I think, was the one that always said it, but it didn't matter because it was the 2 of them. Yeah. And so then the older she got, it just got to the point where I would not let them even watch. I would say, "Hey, we'll go back and watch some of their wrestling match," but we wouldn't watch the entrances at all because, man, come on, it's a little girl, and it was a different time back then. You know what I mean?
The Attitude Era was a different being in its entirety.
It was. It definitely was. It's funny because my brother Brian Road Dogg came out on a pay-per-view one time. We're on WCW getting beat, and Larry Zbyszko and those guys talking about the Armstrong curse, and every time we'd get beat, he told a story about Abdullah the Butcher putting a curse on our father and all the generations to come after our father, and so he said, "Oh yes, the Armstrong curse." Well, then he started saying it every week on TV, and we weren't getting wins on TV, but people knew who we were because of the Armstrongs and the curse, the Armstrong curse. And all of a sudden, my brother comes out with a shirt that he had airbrushed or something, and he comes out on WWE programming with a shirt that says, "Look, Mom, no curse." Oh my gosh! At our house, he called and said, "Hey, you guys, everybody, go to Mom and Dad's and watch the pay-per-view." And so that's what we did. We went to Mom and Dad's house and watched the pay-per-view. Here he came out. We exploded. We laughed. So I said, "This dude, he's been crazy our whole lives, but that was taking it to the next level of national broadcasting." You know what I mean? Oh, that was a lot of fun.
That is funny. So for somebody like me who doesn't know what it is, I've heard the Armstrong curse. I've heard what that was. What exactly was that? How did that come about? The whole curse?
We literally got beat on TV every week. Every week. We didn't. I was with WCW for 7 years total, and I think maybe 5 wins we got on television. And so, and they were, once a year. They were sporadic. The wrestling industry changed. You know what I mean? Once with WCW and WWE, it had gone in the territory days. If you were if you had a lot of fire and had a lot of personality, it didn't matter how big you were, you could be a star. Mm. But as the 90s came, it became very cosmetic, and the good looking guys and the guys that were muscled up, they were the guys that they made stars, because, hey, look, at the end of the day, it's a television show. It's not a real combat wrestling sport. You know what I mean? It is a TV show. I don't care what anybody says. And so you got to know your audience. And in the 90s, the audience changed and it became more cosmetic. And whether you like it or whether you don't like it, that's just what happened. And so, needless to say, me and my brothers, we weren't real lookers and we weren't big, huge, muscled up guys. So, look, our job was to get over the guys that were, and we could wrestle and we could make guys look good. And that was part of our job. And we knew that. And I never had an issue with it. I mean, look, if you got to get a guy over, go get him over. I mean, I think I was the very first Disco Inferno. I think I had his very first match ever with WWE. And I had guys come up and go, well, you could beat this guy's ass. I said, yeah, but that's not the job. Let him dance, come out here. He beats me in 4 minutes. That was my job. And that was, people go, oh, that's job boy mentality. Okay, well, when it was time to pay the power bill, I didn't tell them, hey, wait, I lost on TV this week. Will you cut me some slack? Literally, they want their money. You know what I mean? And life happens. At McDonald's, you don't tell them if you're working in the drive-thru, hey, look, I can only serve this because I only make this much. I mean, come on, man. It's a TV show. Yeah. And I loved being a part of it then. I loved being a part of it 2 years ago. You know what I mean? It's the job that I loved. And so, and I, again, got to see a lot of places and have a lot of fun and a lot of laughs, and met some of the best people in my life, Regal and Fit Finley and, just Robbie Brooks, guys like that, if I hadn't been in WCW, I would have never got a chance to meet those guys. And so it was, I just saw it as such a positive opportunity, the whole thing. And a lot of times ego will get in the way of making money, and you can't let that happen, man. Not if you're really in the wrestling business. But anyway, I don't know. I just loved it, and so happy today that I stuck with it. But the Armstrong curse, I know that's what you'd originally asked, and I apologize. I got off on a rant, but that was the curse. Is we got beat every week. And so as an announcer, it's hard for an announcer every week to go, yeah, these guys just came up short again. So Larry Zbyszko just created a story, and the story got us over just getting beat on television. So it's just crazy how things happen, man. This business. It's like, like my brother with, you didn't know, you better call somebody. He literally would say it in the locker room until somebody finally said, you should say that out there on the microphone. And then he did, and the rest is history. So you never know.
Yep. We were, I was sitting at lunch today with Dwayne and Taylor. She works with us behind the scenes doing the wrestling shows that you help us with.
Yeah, she's a great photographer, by the way.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. She is phenomenal. But we were sitting there at lunch, and Dwayne has been talking about putting me in a position where I do some interviews for our because we've started doing our YouTube tapings for the wrestling shows, and he wanted me to do a little bit of interviews, and I was like, I don't know, am I really prepared for that? And he goes, dude, you've been doing interviews on podcasts for how long?
Yeah.
What's the difference? I said, you're right.
Yeah, that's true.
And I got talking about him, how I've been, like I said, I go back and watch a lot of wrestling. I do that all the time. I watch, and the one person who to me, as you said, Larry Zbyszko came up with something just to put somebody over, and it worked. I felt like Mean Gene specialized in that.
Mean Gene was the best. Yes,
like,
he's a good dude.
Like that, and as somebody who's watched that and is like, okay, I'm about to start doing interviews. He's who I've gone back and watched, because it's my job to make somebody that the crowd doesn't know is a heel, or a face.
Yep.
And Mean Gene was so good at, like, if he said, "This is my friend here, right here," and he put his hand on you and basically gave you that nod of saying, "This is the good guy," everybody knew that's a baby.
He's right.
Or
yeah, he was good at his job. And I know you don't remember Gordon Soley. Gordon Soley was he's like the dude. You got to go back and look up Gordon Soley. He was the premier announcer for Florida Championship Wrestling for us with Southeastern and Continental, really more than Southeastern. But he just a legendary commentator who was the exact same way. If he gave you the, like you're talking about, the pat on the back, the people could trust you. And dude, it makes a difference. Look, I can sit here and talk just like this, only guy on the screen. I can talk all day and no big deal. But the minute you come into play, hey man, I want to hear what you have to ask. You know what I mean? Because you can guide the conversation, and I want you to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know I get off on a rant here and there.
Dude, I'll let you go, man. It's fun for me to just sit back and let you just go down the rabbit hole of finding things that you go, oh man, let me tell you about this time, because that for me, that's the most fun, man.
A lot of years of having fun doing all that. That's for sure.
Yeah. I have. So I just started outside of the podcasting, helping in the wrestling business. I'm giving my feet wet with Dwayne and IWN and Main Event and stuff. And I feel like sometimes I feel a little overwhelmed by all of it.
That's what it is. That's what wrestling is. Once you get in, it is overwhelming. But that's the fun of it all. Is, hey man, throw me in the deep end. Let me see if I can swim. If I can't, throw me a lifeline. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the whole the IWN with the whole network. I mean, please talk about that for a second, because you know a lot more about it than I do, but I'm in on the ground floor with it, so I'm looking forward to being a huge part of it.
Okay, so the IWN network is we have an app coming out. It's Independent Wrestling Network. It's going to be available on mobile phones and iPads. Anywhere you can get an app store, you can download it.
Where are you? I don't see you.
I'll pull myself back up. Here I am. Here I am. I'm not a limelight kind of person. I don't. You know.
Oh, you're good. So it'll be an app.
Yep. So basically, the IWN network is an app that we are currently in the process of building and launching. We are in the final phases of phase 1, which will have TV tapings for Main Event Wrestling. We're working with other local independent promotions as well as others across the world to get their tapings on our app. We've got different podcasts, such as my own podcast, which I started, the Bury the Gimmick podcast. I'm going to plug myself for the first time. This podcast, which is brought to you by the Independent Wrestling Network. This is the first IWN Network podcast. And then as well as Mac Davis's podcast, The Road Trip, with him and with Teddy Long and himself. They're working on some things they've got going. A few other podcasts that I'm friends with and that have amazing stuff. Wrestling with the Truth. There's a bunch of guys out of Canada. They're phenomenal. Off the Top Ropes is phenomenal. They do a lot of great reviews of AEW, WWE. Basically, they put out an episode every day talking about something in the wrestling world, and it's phenomenal stuff. And also, there's going to be some other things that I can't really talk about right now, but it's going to be awesome. It is really going to be a phenomenal app. And then we also have a couple TV shows we're working on. I can't talk about that yet either, but one of the ones we can talk about is we have a documentary series that's going to be coming out that is called Beyond the Ropes. And we're going to be interviewing guys such as Scott, which of course, me and him have the podcast, but we're going to be interviewing guys such as Scott and Chick Donovan, Buff Bagwell, Mr. Hughes, Total Protection, Mr. Hughes, and people like that who have been in the industry for years and years and have so much to tell, but it's not really going to be about their careers then. It's going to be about their career now, where they're going, what their plans are for the next 5 or 10 years, and what they're doing right now. Are they training people? Are they maybe even preparing for an in-ring return? Maybe if somebody thinks they got a little bit in the gas, i.e. Ric Flair. And but that's really what it is, man. It's an app, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We have some big things in store for it. We also have the IWN's exclusive wrestling promotion. It's an independent promotion that we run bi-weekly in Lovejoy, Georgia, called Main Event Wrestling from Georgia. We started it.
Yep.
We started running shows a year ago. We have our anniversary show coming up July 23rd. You'll be there. Your brother, Jesse James, Road Dogg, he's going to be there. Scott Steiner, Tommy Dreamer, Teddy Long, of course, he's going to be there, and a bunch of other people. We've got a tag team gauntlet match we're going to have. We've got our championship match with the Alabama wrestler himself, Adam Priest, which, if anybody doesn't know who Adam Priest is, he is probably one of the most technically gifted wrestlers I've seen wrestle in person since.
Yeah, I do. That kid can go. He's got a great attitude. So
yeah,
he's a name. He's a name that will be out there for a while.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. I put it when I first watched him wrestle. I said on my podcast, I said this kid looks like all of the Radicals combined into one person wrestling ring in style, like in ring style wise. And it made him pop so hard. He came to me personally and was like, dude, that was the best compliment I've ever received in my life.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's got a good attitude. He's going to go a long way. And yeah, it's really cool to be a part of the whole IWN family and be kind of in on the ground floor of what we're doing today. You know what I mean? What we're with this podcast. And it's funny, I appreciate the opportunity to have a podcast and be a part of this, because I'll never forget this. It's been right after we got pulled. I got hired to go to NXT. And so my brother and it was NXT's in Orlando. And so we live in Pensacola. Well, it's about a 7.5 hour drive. And so my brother and I would meet and then ride together. And so he said, hey, you want to listen to some wrestling podcast? And I said, yeah, sure. And I'm not going to say the name of the podcast. I don't want to diss anybody, but we're riding down the road and we're listening to guys just like you and I, Mike. And they start talking about NXT and what's going on behind the scenes and the storylines and the direction the storylines are going to go. And we just sat in the car in amazement, because I didn't realize you just flat out tell stuff you really don't know on a podcast, and people will buy into it. And so then I looked, and these two dudes had a lot of subscribers, and the comments, people were buying into what they were saying. And there's my brother and I, who literally were two of the, not so many people that are behind the scenes that are, it was just such a, wait a minute, none of that's true.
Yeah.
So I told my brother, I said, how you can't fix that? And he said, no, people will buy into it. He said, they will definitely buy into it. He said, but they will watch NXT to see if any of it's true. And I started laughing, and I said, well, there you go. Watch the show and see if anything they say is true. Because if it's not, then they're just having a podcast and BS a little bit. That's why I don't know what's going on in WWE. I don't know what's going on in AEW. I enjoy watching it all. I have no clue. But I have a lot of stories to tell you about the past. So if you're interested in hearing any of that from territory days all the way up to WWE and NXT, please hit us up, like, subscribe, leave a comment on YouTube, leave a comment anywhere. We would love to have it.
Yeah. We love all feedback on the podcast. We want to know if you guys have further questions or comments, or, hey man, Big Mike sucks. You need a better producer. let me know. Let me know. Hashtag Big Mike sucks. Hey, man, bad publicity is still publicity.
Publicity is publicity. That's right. Just spell the name right.
Exactly. But no, if you do want to hit us up, you can always hit me up on Twitter at Big Mike the host. You can hit Scott up at WWE Armstrong. You can find the podcast at Armstrong Ave Pod. That's Armstrong AVE Pod. Go over to YouTube.
Let's don't forget, book Scott Armstrong at gmail.com. If you are interested in any seminars, bookings, or want me to come referee your indie show, I'll come cook your family dinner, make my biscuits for you.
Still waiting on that, guys. By the way, I'm still waiting on it.
Just email book Scott Armstrong at gmail.com. And,
that's right.
Give us a shout. Or if you want to ask your question on there, just a lot easier to do it here or on Twitter.
Yep. But don't call me. Just don't call me.
It won't matter. I won't pick up. You know, Big Mike. I just won't pick up. Scott will be at the beach and he'll call me back later. And go, sorry, man. I was tanning. I'm like, man, I'm jealous. I'm so jealous. No, this was a fun one, man. Thank you, guys. Like we said, go to the YouTube Armstrong Avenue podcast. Like, subscribe. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm telling you, outside of my kids. I'm having so much fun doing this. Lie to me, brother. Lie to me. Hey, thank you, Big Mike. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for listening. We love y'all. We're out of here.